Well, you're really, it is a very easy plant to grow. Most people that have grown flowers have had marigolds at some time or the other. But a few years ago, I thought, well, why not make a little class on it, a shorter class, and just go through some of the history and how the marigold got to be the marigold. So we'll talk about that and how to grow them, and we'll move on to the next slide. So marigold is Tagetes. It's the genus. They can come in annual or perennial, mostly herbaceous plants, but they are also in the sunflower Asteraceae family, which is the largest family of flowering plants. They are native to the United States, southwestern United States, down to South America. It's where they originated from, but you would think by other countries that they were from other parts of the world. So a little history. Marigolds were discovered in the 16th century by the Europeans, and they brought them back to Europe, and then they Northern Africa, where they quickly adopted the tall or the larger marigolds into Africa, and then it got called the African marigold because it colonized or naturalized so easy in Africa, and by the time it got to England, they called it the African marigold. Same with the smaller one, we call it the French marigold, which made its way from France to England. So it was called the French marigold. So really, that's just a weird way that we got their names for them based on two countries that they are not native to. In Mexico, the marigold was regarded as the Day of the Dead flower in pre-Hispanic Mexico, and you'll still see marigolds and things in Mexico with Day of the Dead celebrations. They're still sold at markets and places as a remembrance flower for those that have passed. And in Spain, marigolds are favorites to be placed on the altar of the Virgin Mary. Mary's gold became marigold. So that's how it's actually got the name marigold. In India, the flower still has religious significance and is known as the friendship flower. And if you ever see pictures and weddings and stuff from India, that the marigold is very prominent in most all of their celebrations over there. And then by the early 1800s, the marigolds were well known in American gardens, which is kind of funny that it's native to America, but it took 200 years for it to go overseas and come back before it got really distributed in our area of America. Joseph Beck, the author of The Flower Garden in 1851, described the French marigold as one of the old-fashioned flowers, deservedly popular from the brilliancy and variegation of its flowers. Even though it doesn't come in a wide range of colors, it is a very colorful flower. As far as the nomenclature, the name Tagetes means born from the plowing of the earth, which is likely referenced by how easily this plants germinate and grow. And in warmer regions, the plants can even regrow from their stems from the previous year. And then Tagetes erectus is the often termed the African marigold or the tall marigold, and then Tagetes betula is termed the French marigold. Although, as I said earlier, all the marigolds are actually American. So what uses do we use marigolds for? Well, because of their musky, pungent scent, some varieties are said to deter pests. Usually there's not been much scientific evidence to prove this until recently, and they have proven that the pungent smell of the marigold actually does deter whiteflies. Doesn't kill them, it just deters them. So they've done some work on putting marigolds in greenhouses at high tunnels with tomatoes in there, and that helps ward off the whitefly from the tomatoes. So it doesn't kill them, it just makes them not want to be around those other plants. Tagetes does in fact exude antibacterial properties into the soil as well. Have legumes, they fix nitrogen. Well, these have a little bit of antibacterial property that they ooze into the soil, which helps them from getting root problems, root rots, and those kinds of things. Marigold is often added, believe it or not, as a colorant for foods, pasta, oils, mayonnaise, baked goods, dairy products, mustard, and poultry feeds. And you can see the egg yolks here. The one that is fed without marigolds and probably a store-bought egg where the hens that actually didn't get to go outside or eat grass and other things. But you can see there on the right, if they add marigold to the feed, the yolk is a lot oranger and has a much deeper color. And also, marigolds are plant food for some butterfly species. So we may not want to control everything that eats on them. Let some few things that they want to eat on them because you'll get some butterflies. Marigolds can also be an herb. This is Tagetes lucida, which is used to prepare a sweet anise flavored medicinal tea in Mexico. And it's also used as a culinary herb in warm climates as a substitute for tarragon. So if you like the flavor of tarragon, you're going to like the flavor of this more than likely. This is also known as Texas tarragon or Mexican tarragon. Tagetes minuta is native to southern South America and is used as a culinary herb in Peru, Ecuador, Chile, and Bolivia. And it's actually used as a paste to make potato dishes. And said to have notes of sweet basil, tarragon, mint, and citrus. So on to actually growing the marigolds, soil preparations for new and existing flower beds. And I know if you've ever heard any extension agent talk about, hort agent or an ag agent talk about planting anything, we're going to say take a soil sample first. Just to give you an idea here, collect 10 to 15 plugs per area. Stay away from any anomalies like any rock formations or holes or ditches or anything like that. We're trying to get an average. You want to collect about 6 inches down and then pull those plugs out and mix them together. If they're really wet, you might want to dry them for a day or two. But if they're just reasonably moist, they're fine. And then just bring it into your local extension office and they'll send them up to the lab to be tested. Sorry about the Washington County, it is free, but only to Washington County residents. I should have taken that out, but there probably are a lot more counties that are free than there used to be. So again, fertilization is not a huge deal for these plants. They grow pretty well in just average soil, as you would expect from being native to the Southwest. You can adjust the pH, the optimum between 6 and 7. If you're in a limestone soil area, you're probably going to be in between there anyway. And other parts of the state, I'm not sure about how much the pH varies over the state, but I will say there's even pockets around here in central Kentucky that have some pHs in the 5s naturally. So you may want to get a test on those, or if you do have a test that's the native soil that's down in the 5s, maybe you want to start growing some blueberries or something instead. You know, apply general fertilizers or specific nutrients. If you get a soil test, you'll know what specific nutrients you need. If you don't, then you're just going to apply some regular water soluble or granular fertilizer. You can also use manures or compost, that kind of thing. But just know these plants do not need a great deal of fertility, but they will grow more if you do feed them more and deadhead. If you're going to grow some of the larger ones for cut flowers, you definitely probably want to push the fertilizer on those because you're keep cutting those back, cutting new flowers, and it's just regrowing. So it'll take a little more nutrients than maybe if you're going the little French ones and not doing anything but just letting them grow. So marigolds have to have full sun. They love hot, full sun. You want to also select a spot that has adequate drainage. They don't necessarily like wet feet, and so make sure you don't have standing water where you're going to plant these. And then before planting, you want to either till the bed or double dig. I know some people don't like to dig. You don't have to if you've built up your flower bed enough that it's loose enough and you don't want to walk on it and or prepare the bed. That's fine. But if it's a new area or one that's been compacted over the winter or whatever, definitely want to loosen that up for these plants to get started. So your plants are up. We have some weed control issues. You can always use a landscape fabric and then plant, cut a whole plant through it or put the landscape fabric around the plants. Mulches are going to be your best bet and best overall for most plants you're going to grow anyway. So you want to make sure you get weed-free straw, and by weed-free, I mean also it doesn't have any wheat seeds in it. Because if you've ever put some wheat or some straw out somewhere that wasn't clean, you ended up with a weed mess. Wood chips, wood mulches, composted yard waste, grass clippings if you haven't sprayed your yard with 2,4-D or something like that to kill broadleaf weeds. We also, if you got transplants and you're planting transplants, you can also use pre-emergent to stop other weeds from germinating. The active ingredient is trifluralin. I'm not pushing preen, I'm just showing you that because that's the easiest one you usually find at most of the garden centers. And then I guess you could do non-selective post-emergence with glyphosate or diquat. I think paraquat may be off the market now or is going. Just be careful with those two because you can really damage your marigolds if you just get any of that on the plants, especially the diquat. The glyphosate is Roundup. Just make sure you don't get it on the plants because it will kill it if you just get a little bit on it. So we have seed starting. You don't have to start these indoors. They germinate pretty quickly and grow pretty fast. But if you do, you want to use a good seed starting medium, obviously. And definitely, believe it or not, this is an area where you don't want to skimp on your seed mix. You could get, if you skimp on your seed mix, you're going to have poor fertility in it more than likely. And you maybe even end up having some root rot problems and things because some of this stuff out here may have, if it doesn't say it's been sterilized, it could have some bacteria and stuff in it. And whenever you're trying to germinate seeds, you have to keep the water a little bit more moist in the soil. So you have a higher risk of having some root rot problems. So pay for the good stuff. It's not going to take that much to start these before you plant them in the ground. And you should also assume that you're going to have a good germination rate as long as you have purchased your seed in the last 2 years, because they do germinate pretty quickly and easily. And then once your plants are germinating, you definitely want to get them in some light. Remember, these like full sun, so they're going to need a lot of light. And you can use a grow light. If you've got a really sunny window, you can do that. What I would do if I didn't have a greenhouse or grow lights, even if I had just a south facing window, I probably would just wait and seed them out directly into the ground. So if you do start seeds indoors, which one of these you think would you rather have? Now I know neither one of these are marigolds, but by looking at those plants, the one on the left, see how short and stocky and squatty they are? They're not stretching for light or anything, so they've got plenty of light. On the right there, you can see those tomato seedlings are stretching, which means they're trying to get more light. So definitely, if you're going to grow marigolds, they're going to stretch too if they're not getting enough light like these tomatoes. So you want to get that grow light all the way down as close as you can get to the top of those plants and make sure they're getting the most light that they can get. Here we go. We can start seeds outdoors. They're easy to do. You want to plant a marigold seed about 1/4 of an inch deep. And you make sure to create a nice loose seed bed for them. And then don't worry about sowing too thick. It's not a big deal. These do transplant really easily, or you can thin them out. But if you plant them too thick, you need to pull some out. You can pull them up, transplant them in other beds or other parts of your yard, or you can give them to friends. Most of us would take some marigolds, I think, if someone was growing some extra ones. Here's some examples of the French type of marigolds and some of the newer stuff that they've done with them. And you can see how the blooms have changed, different colors, even getting a vanilla cream color down there, some singles and doubles. So they've done some work on these and almost got a solid red there with the disco red. And then you can see you can get solid colors with splashes. And this is just the tip of the iceberg. I just put these in here to give you some examples of what is out there now. And then the African types, or the taller types, they don't have to be the taller types, just the bigger bloom types. Because Antigua and Inca are shorter, even though they have big blooms. They are shorter, they're not as tall as what they used to call the tall marigold. But some of the older varieties definitely still do, and some of the new cut varieties they can get really tall. But you can see they even have like a vanilla or white color one there, really light yellow, and then we have the dark orange up here with Moonsong there. But you can see there's lots more colors and sizes and things in these now than there used to be. All right, some problems that you may run into. This is probably going to be the biggest problem you'll ever face with marigolds. If you're in a location and it's hot and dry in a protected location and you've got spider mites there, they're going to hit your marigolds hard. They love marigolds. And you can see, I mean, the webbing here, all the bronzing of the foliage. I mean, this plant is on its way out with these spider mites on it. And once it got to this point, you'd be better off if you just pulled that plant up and put it in a plastic bag and sealed it shut to kill everything. The spider mites are really hard to control, and you can see them. I mean, these on the tips of leaves, there's so many you can actually see them up close here. If you look, they're so thick, they're getting ready to try to fly off there. And by fly off there, I mean they will spin a little web and then like let it parachute them into the air, hoping that they'll land on another plant that doesn't have as many spider mites on it. So I'll go back one more. Oh, sorry. So how do you control spider mites? You've got to get to them before they get to you. There's a few things you can do. You can try to spray a stiff spray of water up through under that foliage for 3 days in a row, and then maybe spray some insecticide, old soap or something like that on it. You can buy miticide for it. They're usually very expensive and not worth the money unless you've got a lot of plants that are getting spider mites year after year on shrubs and perennials and those kinds of things. Usually they are self-limiting by the season. If it's hot and dry and you got a protected location, you're probably going to have spider mites. If it's a regular year and we've got adequate rainfall, they're usually not near as big of an issue for us around here, unless it's just an odd year. But they do love marigolds. That's one of their favorite foods. Other possible problems, especially in the spring, is slugs, and you can see those little on the right there, those little baby plants there were destroyed there, and it doesn't take them very long. So the easiest way to control slugs, you can do slug bait, which is just a granular bait that's got actually carbaryl, which is the active ingredient 7 in it. It usually will get them overnight, or you could do the method with burying the can down, coffee can down in the ground a little bit and leaving it kind of flush with the soil surface and putting some beer in there and let them come to that and either die happy, or unless you put near beer in it, and they'll come to that just as well because they're after the malt, so they'll just fall over and drown. A lot of us like to do cut flowers with marigolds. So if you want to extend your cut flower life, if you were going to cut them and bring them indoors, you want to select the ones that are just starting to open. You don't want a fully open flower because it's already doing its show outside, and it's going to cut several days off of what you're going to get to enjoy indoors. You also want to cut early in the morning where everything is really fresh and full of water, and you want to get the stems in water immediately after cutting. I would suggest you just go out with some water and a pitcher or something and or a bucket and cut your flowers and put them in there immediately. You do want to condition the flowers quickly, store them in the coolest area possible, ideally 35 degrees. Now, most of us are not going to have a 35-degree area, but if you've got a refrigerator or something that you maybe have in the garage or something like that, you could just take care of them that way and put them in a refrigerator. But if you just get the coolest room that you can get, you'll be fine. And then you want to store them in a high humidity area, obviously, and then you want to recut the stems underwater whenever you're arranging. So when you pull them out of that water, you're going to give them a fresh cut and put them in your vase. That's going to make sure that they don't have a dry pocket that's healed over, and they will be able to take up as much water as possible. Some people like preservatives in the water. I've seen mixed reviews on whether you need these or not, but it does kind of make a little sense to me that you may need a little bit of it. There's a lemon lime soda mixture. You're going to use regular lemon lime soda, not a diet type remember, we want that little bit of sugar. Those plants need sugar, or they make sugar. It's what they grow on. So that little bit of sugar will help them last a little longer. 3 parts of warm water and a quarter of teaspoon of liquid bleach per quart of solution. So that little bit of bleach is going to keep some bacteria and stuff down out of that water too. You can also, there's a lemon juice mixture, which is 2 tablespoons of lemon juice. You can use fresh or bottled. I'd probably use bottled because it's so much cheaper than trying to buy lemons and making your fresh. Maybe a tablespoon of sugar and another quarter teaspoon of bleach per quart of water with this one too. So those 2 things should give you a little bit of nutrient for your plant and a little bit of I don't know, some benefits of having something that in that water that will actually kill bacteria if they were to start to grow in there very much. Here's just basic floral design tips. This is not me. This is a flower grower. That this is her point, or what she thinks that the flower arrangement should be. So don't call me fussing that you would do this. This is what she says is best. So the arrangement should be 1.5 to 2.5 times the height of the vase or length of the bowl or tray. You want to measure from the rim of the container to the top of the tallest flower. You want to only use 1, 2, or 3 colors. 4, not counting the green, is max. Then you want 2 or 3 types of flowers would be optimum. 4 maximum. Buds and small flowers at the top and outer edges with larger flowers to the bottom and the center. Light colors at the top, dark at the base. There should be 3 lighter flowers to every dark if they are the same size. When less than 12 flowers are used, it is best to use an uneven number. Now, that's hers. You don't have to take that. You can take that with a grain of salt. I would agree with most of this, but I definitely would agree with the odd numbers. They always look best.